Thank you, Suzanne. I believe that probably reducing government maybe is one of the most important things. But when you start reducing services, you've got to consider the unintended consequences of those kind of changes. I'm not sure how you define pork, but I know one issue that people quarrel about is the fairs and festivals money in West Virginia. Some people call that pork. There's a lot of people that don't call it pork. So, I think we've got to take a look at how efficient government is. I think that's probably one of the most important things. If we can become more efficient, I think we're much better off. We have some real issues with health care and a lot of social issues that require a lot of money and a lot of revenue. And I certainly think that we've got to take a look at everything in government and see how it can be reduced. But I don't think we can just make wholesale statements that we're going to reduce pork. I think we've got to define those kinds of things before. And I think this is part of the problem right now, that we played on those words that ring with people and not consider the unintended consequences of what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Eisner?
Pork is a great word to use whenever you're running for office. It's great to put on a mailer, it's great to put on a billboard, and it's great to try to attack or criticize an opponent that's has a legislative record. And the unfortunate part is we have to define what pork is. And I think that Delegate Hartman is right that it is sometimes challenging to make a distinction between what is pork and what is something that can stimulate economic growth. I mean, I'm a firm believer in some of the money we spend in our fairs and festivals area in particular. I mean, we were talking off the record about the Roadkill Festival coming up. We had the Greenbrier River Race here last week. We've got the Forest Festival over in Elkins. And those are things that can stimulate, the economy by bringing people in. Tourism is commonly talked about in this rural area of the state as something that is, important to the future of our economy. I don't think it can be the only component of our economy moving forward, and I think sometimes we rely too much on it. But programs just like that, some people consider pork, some people see as something that will stimulate economic growth. We also have an aging population in West Virginia, and some of those, pork programs that get criticized are things that might otherwise be, services, for our seniors and for some of the least among us that need a little extra helping hand. So it's challenging. It's a challenge every day as you look at the budget, as a delegate when it comes out, where do we cut? What are our priorities? And really, when we look at West Virginia's budget and the size of our government, we'd love to shrink it. But we have to determine what the priorities are, where the money needs to be spent. And that's not an easy task to do. I think it takes a lot of time. Last year, deep into the summer. I hope we never do that again. But, it's a real challenge, and it's great to put on a billboard, but harder to do in reality.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson?
Well, we do have a very large government for a state of our size with population. We want to talk about services. As my opponents have also mentioned, services benefit people. We have a very low-income population. We have students, we have elderly people, and they don't have a lot of money, and these services provide valuable resources to them. And we want to start talking about, where we can start cutting them with pork. We start looking at the Supreme Court and how much money they receive and buying rugs and couches that cost more than my vehicles. I think we can definitely start to look at where we can cut some money, where we can we get the best bang for our buck. Because we don't want wasteful spending. We can't have wasteful spending in a household. We can't have wasteful spending in our state legislature. And I'd like to see some more responsibility placed on our legislators, where we can basically have our services provided to our needy people and our elderly and our students, and every West Virginian benefits. But we also spend wisely, and we want to talk also about our services, cutting our services. We've cut taxes on out-of-state corporations for the past 4 years. And even looking back further to 2008 and beyond, we've cut out so much revenue from tax cuts that we've had to continue cutting services that West Virginians need. You start looking at our higher education budget. We cut higher education, that directly affects the students going there. We have to continually raise our tuition costs, and that directly affects those students. They're starting out their young lives with $30, $40, $50, $100,000 in debt. So I would like to see some more judgment put into place when we're looking at budgets and still serving the citizens of West Virginia.
Thank you. Mr. House?
Hey, cutting the budget obviously is a necessity, and I think that as the Republicans have moved into control of the House and Senate and now governorship, they've done a lot of things to cut the budget. There's been appropriate things done, but there are, again, certainly many more things to be done. I think that probably the area that would serve the best is an accountability of each department. I've worked as a contract laborer in different departments, whether it's a Department of Corrections or with CPS cases and so on. What I've seen is there's a lack of accountability by the employees or for the employees, and I think that making certain that there's accountability in each department and cutting those in departments where the cuts can be made. I think that the social service programs, SNAP and other programs that are necessary for those who are in need don't have to necessarily be affected. I think there needs to be more accountability in those programs as well, the social programs, accountability by those receiving them, but also those who are administered. The welfare, the Department of Human Services budget is such that if everybody that was receiving help from the Department of Human Services were to, each person could receive $25,000 each, and just totally do away with the Department of Human Services, and that would take care of the budget. It's, because they're spending that much. They're spending more than what the people are even receiving. So there just has to be accountability, and when that accountability is there, then a lot of the issues will be taken care of.
Thank you.